Thank you. You guys want to take a seat? That's great. Well, good morning. Good morning. My name is Harry Belafonte, and it's a delight to welcome you all to First Unitarian Church. Wow. What do you say, guys? It's a new year. Everybody realize, what does a new year mean to you? It means something. Let's find out what that something is. What is a new year? Yeah. What was it? You go around the sun again, so the earth has tilted, you go around this. Days get longer, yeah. What else does it mean? What does it mean personally to yourself? Yeah. That what? You getting another year older? Really? Are all of you going to get older this year? Really? Am I going to get older this year too? I'm going to reach 39. Is that going to happen this year? Wow. What about, have you heard about resolutions? New Year's resolutions? You know what that's all about? What's that all about? Making changes? Have you thought about, because here we are looking at a whole clean calendar, all these dates ahead, right? And that's an opportunity for us to maybe be different. Yeah. What have you made any ideas of changes? You don't know. So you're saying that my resolution to work out more is not going to happen? That's crushing. I'm going to make sure it's going to happen now because you said it won't. Yeah. So you don't make any resolutions at all? You don't make any promises to yourself for anything different? Does anybody make any promises that things will be different in the new year? Yeah. That you'll get better grades. Okay, that's a good thing. Is that just going to happen? No. So the resolution is to study harder? Okay. Any other resolutions? What about the kind of person you want to be? Any kind of changes in how you want to be with your brothers or sisters or moms or dads? Any changes there at all? Yeah. Yeah. You want to be more honest. That's great. That's a wonderful resolution. Wonderful. Good. And I think all of you have made resolutions already, and that is to go to church regardless of the weather. That is a wonderful resolution to make. Well, maybe your parents made that a resolution for you. Yeah. Well, listen, we are going to have the Diller family light our chalice this morning. And Max and Alex, you want to please come down and bring your mom with you?
Symbol of light, symbol of knowledge, symbol of one, symbol of freedom. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. Here we gather to celebrate hope and the infinite possibilities of love.
Thank you. You've got a career in the ministry. That was really good. Thank you. Let's open up our service. Turning our hymn books, please, to number 123, Spirit of Life.
As we settle into worship this morning, we invoke the Spirit of life to awaken the stirrings of compassion in us, that we may give life the shape of justice. For there can be no justice without compassion. Can you even imagine one without the other? And yet this week, as we turn on the TV or the radio, we hear only cruelty and injustice from those in power. Our thoughts today are especially heavy as we think of public servants who are out of work, people who will go hungry because their public benefits can't be paid, people forbidden from taking leave during the government shutdown. As funding is held up in the name of a scar of rusted steel that would stretch across the belly of our continent, tearing families, cities, and nations apart. In the face of such cruelty, we boldly invoke the Spirit of life so that we may not bear this weight alone, so that we may find the courage to face it together as people. Spirit, help us to be humble. Remind us that the soil of every human heart contains the seeds of both good and evil. Help us to recognize the seeds that grow into cruelty, the seeds of bitterness, of contempt, of anger, and to gently uproot them with kindness. Let us never be satisfied to demean another person, for in so doing, we demean our own nature too. Help us to see the potential for goodness in every person, even when it seems to be buried deep, for in so doing, we find our own reserves of goodness. Help us not only to bloom with compassion, but to cultivate compassion in others. Write it on our hearts, post it on our doors, bind it to our memories. Let every word we speak this year be kindness and mercy and justice. Amen.
We're going to continue along the meditative thoughts that Monica shared this morning about compassion and empathy and kindness. Where are they? Good question. And it's led some social scientists to turn to the laboratory, see if they can find out what's going on. And hence this reading this morning, the kernel of human or rodent kindness. So we're going to really focus on this link between morality and empathy. Morality and empathy. How are they connected or not? Morality exists only because we evolved the capacity to empathize. And empathy provides the best guide to moral action. But there are those who say that empathy is too selective to play such a central role in our moral system. People tend to empathize more readily with those who look, sound, and behave like themselves. We feel the pain more acutely of those who resemble us. How, then, can empathy serve as a moral guide when it is morality's role to lead us away from cruelty towards people outside our own group? To answer this objection, we can look to our fellow animals, many of whom share our capacity for empathy. If a rat sees another rat drowning, for example, it will forgo a chunk of chocolate to save its imperiled friend. Its actions are guided by its empathy. Scientists at the University of Chicago further explored the nature of empathy in rats. They found that a white rat raised among only white rats will do nothing to save a black rat from a trap. Rats, like humans, can be biased in how they act on or don't act on their empathy. Now, in a variant of the experiment, a white rat raised among black rats would save a black rat from a trap, but would fail to save other white rats. And a white rat raised among black and white rats rescued rats of both colors. The researchers found that it is not the rat's color that determines which type of rat it will show empathy for, but the social context in which it was raised. In short, rats do not show empathy because of an innate recognition or similarity in physical appearance. Likewise, when human empathy can be partial, it is because the experiences of people from some groups are hidden from our view, which limits our empathy towards them. It's vital to recognize that prejudice is not baked in. It is the result of our ignorance. A failure to learn about people, or rats, of different kinds can mean that we fail to recognize their pain as genuine pain. Empathy can be switched off. Empathy by itself is not enough. It becomes an accurate guide for moral action only when combined with knowledge of people of all different backgrounds. Knowledge that can be attained only if you are willing to actively listen to people whose voices have been silenced.
You know, David, that's my very favorite Chopin waltz. And the reason I love it is because it sounds like somebody doing sports and like taking a run and leap. Skateboarding, ski jumping, I don't know, something like that. Anyway, welcome once again. We're so glad to see each one of you today. January is a month of teaching and learning in our community here at First Unitarian Church. So I want to tell you about 3 opportunities that you've got coming up. One, today, right after worship, 12:30 in the Haven, which is our high school room, just right upstairs, out back of the sanctuary here. We'll be having our Beyond Inquirers series. This is a monthly series for people who are relatively new to the community, who maybe have been through our orientation class, want to just go a little bit deeper and learn a little bit more about what Unitarian Universalism is. We welcome you to join us for this class. You can just drop in. We've got coffee and bagels, and we'll pray to the snow gods to just lower the temperature, just not lower the temperature. What am I trying to say? Anyway, you get the picture. Just stay, okay, 12:30, and coffee and bagels, and learn more about our congregation. If you'd like to start more on the ground level, then I invite you to join us for UU orientation on the 14th. That's a week from tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Reverend Tom and I will give you a 2-hour quick introduction to our congregation. And finally, if you've been here for a while, you've become a member of our congregation, and now you'd like to learn how to share the good news of Unitarian Universalism in our community, then I invite you to join me here Tuesday night this week, and there will be 3 Tuesday nights in January. It's the UU elevator speech. You can learn a quick way to share what our church is all about with friends, neighbors, and our community. And now, I invite you to consider making a generous gift to our congregation as we collect our morning offering. Take an opportunity as well to say hello and welcome.
Our reading this morning, which linked our capacity for empathy with the same characteristics found in rats, did not aim to diminish human empathy. It merely exposed the tendency in creatures, us among them, the tendency to limit our identification with those who are outside our tribe and who do not look like us. The evidence is overwhelming that although we are really all considered to be human beings, we are at best indifferent to those human beings with whom we seem to share nothing in common. Now, this tough premise underlying all human relations begs the question: if the pain and sorrow of those who do not resemble us mean little or nothing to us, then how do we encounter each other? How do we encounter the world? Are we like rats who practice selective empathy only, whereby we feel attachment and commitment and compassion exclusively for our own tribe? If white rats care nothing at all about black rats, well, do we as people follow the same course? And if we immediately, our impulse is to say, oh, no, that's not true for people, then why is it necessary for African Americans to rally behind and organize around the cry of Black Lives Matter. It's important because they go unnoticed. They don't feel the empathy of mainstream America. Black Lives Matter. They're different, set apart. If we were to observe human beings in a laboratory, we would in all likelihood discover the same biases that are found in rats. That intrinsic to our very being, we show little or no empathy towards those who do not resemble us. But it's not all bleak. If a white rat is raised among black and white rats together, it ceases to make distinctions about tribe. Empathy becomes more far-reaching. How we encounter each other and the world, it seems, depends on the social context in which we are raised. The conclusion is one probably most of us would have guessed from the beginning. Prejudice against those who do not resemble us is not a given, but instead points to our ignorance. Our empathy towards others expands when we experience those of different backgrounds. Then the light bulb goes on. Now, we saw this reflected in a relatively new film called The Green Book, based on the true story where a black jazz pianist in 1962, Don Shirley, is chauffeured through the South by a white racist from the Bronx. The chauffeur ultimately gets acquainted with Don Shirley, someone obviously not in his tribe, and he listens to someone, probably for the first time, whose voice has been silenced by a hostile white power structure. And by the end of the journey, there's a new relationship formed between them. And the black pianist is even welcomed into the home of the white racist. Failure to have empathy for people unlike ourselves has moral implications. Think about this carefully. Does not morality hinge on a person's capacity to feel the pain of people who exist outside one's tribe? It seems to me that empathy and morality are tethered. If we need more proof, we need not look further than the White House. By lacking any empathy for people unlike himself, be they Muslim or from Central America, our president becomes an example of what it means when a moral compass is broken. By encountering others and the world with a willful disconnect to those who are culturally different, exposes a person as immoral. When immune to the suffering of others, then there's no opportunity for this compass to find its true north. We see this immoral behavior played throughout the world. In Yemen, where close to 100,000 children have died of starvation, the United Nations called the war in Yemen the world's worst humanitarian crisis. But nothing changes. Empathy is absent. And so too, then, is a moral directive to end the crisis. This is also the case where just last week, an Israeli soldier shot and killed a Palestinian medic. No empathy exists between Israelis and Palestinians, and thus a moral imperative to end the centuries of strife stands little or no chance of succeeding. Brown-skinned children seeking asylum in America die in U.S. custody. No empathy. And the poor in our our nation, the riches of all the nations in the world, the poor here find it harder than ever to survive, while the ultra-rich receive tax breaks, more money. We live in an immoral world. Religion likes to hang its hat on morality. So what role does religion play in transforming the world? You know, sometimes people go so far as to equate religion with morality. I am religious, therefore I am moral. Not so fast. But if religion is to be effective at all, it must come to understand the intricate link of morality with extending empathy. Religion fails. Religion fails miserably if its only concern is tending the flock within its own domain. Often the signage misleads, like posting, "All are welcome." You know, there are often too many qualifications that must be satisfied before the newcomer can be accepted as one of the tribe. Religion, as simply another tribe, fails in its moral mission to expand sympathies more universally. Now, one of the key points in the parable of the Good Samaritan was that the Samaritan stopped to help someone in desperate need who was not part of his own tribe. I mean, that's so astounding. It made its way into the Bible. It was just incredible. And to make it even more dramatic, the parable describes how religious people ignored the person in need. These religious people had no compassion. Isn't the point of religion to help us all pay attention to one another and to the world? If religion is to carry out this business of morality, it must raise our awareness that people outside our tribe are deserving of our love. Isn't the point of religion to help dissolve the boundaries between our individual lives? An immoral world cannot be transformed until those walls separating us from one another are torn down. So if religion wants to influence moral behavior, then all distinctions between race, religion, class, sexuality, culture must be removed, as religion upholds a unity. Can you imagine just this unity among us all, a kind of mysterious unity that connects us all to one another? When the bonds of sympathy are widened, so too will be an urgent responsibility to all neighbors, and this will obviously affect the world. So this connectedness, this unity, and it's so overwhelming to contemplate. This, I got to call it this mysterious unity, is actually labeled differently by different groups. And they all ride on the same premise that pure self-interest precludes the experience of connecting with something larger than oneself. Now, something larger than oneself is one of the names for this mysterious unity. Now, the story of Siddhartha leaving the palace helps me understand the nuance, really, of this mysterious unity, this connection with all others, and how it winds up in the realm of the spiritual. Siddhartha grew up literally behind walls that that protected him from the afflictions and sorrows of all these other people, unlike himself. When he was born, however, it was predicted that he would be a spiritual teacher rather than follow his father as king. Now, as a king, well, any king might easily be content to remain aloof and indifferent to the sorrows of others. But as a spiritual teacher, it would become necessary to leave the palatial protections that preserve just narrow encounters with others and the world. And so at age 29, Siddhartha left the palace and was shocked by all he saw. But he was able to teach. He was able to teach that so much of our hurt and pain and sorrow and afflictions are due to our notions that we all are separate individual entities. We fail to see, much less experience, this mysterious unity. Instead, we see ourselves as the center of all things. This is harmful to all and to ourselves. We pursue lives with this false notion that we are in fact separate from others. We exempt ourselves from the interconnection of all of life. And therein lie our sorrows and great difficulties. This mysterious unity was also expressed by the Apostle Paul in his letter to the Galatians. I think we're all familiar with the concept and even the words. There's neither Jew nor Greek, there's neither slave nor free, nor male or female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. The religious ideal for Paul was to remove the artificial distinctions we make between people. In other words, there are no black rats and white rats. We're all part of the same body of humanity. We are all equal as God's children. Now, as I said, there are many names given to this mysterious unity, and we may not really resonate with the term that Paul applies. But the concept remains paramount in that religion must erase the barriers that separate us from one another. Now, we may prefer to use language that conjures up an image of the sanctity of the whole of nature, or a singular unity, which is, when you think about it, pretty mystifying. But without such faith in this mysterious unity, without extending empathy to others unlike ourselves, we miss the breakthrough. We miss this illumination and understanding of something so much greater than ourselves. It is so frustrating when the evangelical Christian right presumes to be speaking on behalf of Christianity and insists that it has taken the moral high road. They miss the meaning entirely of Jesus' ministry to the poor and sick, and they miss the meaning of Paul's call for unity among all people. So when I say, they miss the meaning, I want to explain my understanding of meaning, which is really about the why. Meaning is the why of human behavior. Meaning explains our behavior. We act in certain ways to make our lives meaningful. Why, for example, do I volunteer in a sanctuary church? Because that gives my life meaning. The purpose of our theological work is to live meaningfully in this world. That is, what does our behavior say in how we encounter others and the world? the religious vision of how we ought to confront the world, an ideal found equally in all the world's great religions and articulated very clearly by their respective prophets. This vision entails dissolving the boundaries between all individuals. And the evangelical right remains singularly committed to individual modes of success regardless of the cost to others. They uphold this position in the name of religion. Let me give you a very succinct definition of religion found in our adult education program, Building Your Own Theology. Religion is the core of ultimate meanings, values, and convictions to which we commit our lives. That's it. That's what religion is. Religion is the core of ultimate meanings, values, and convictions to which we commit our lives. And so, we gather in this very simple little church community to come to understand what it is to which we ultimately want to commit our lives. Our theology, or the work we do to discover life's meaning and the why we act the way we do, is noticeably different from evangelical theology, which cares primarily about the enrichment of individuals. It's incomprehensible to me that as a religious voice, the evangelicals reject all paths pointing to something resembling this mysterious unity. Now, if we look upon the tumult in this world today, the suffering, the wars, the indifference, I believe we would agree that the religions of the world have failed. The religions have failed to at least inspire an expansion of empathy. And without that commitment, religion has no moral voice. A powerful voice in support of this unity in the universe, which defies the kind of understanding that could be achieved through empirical or rational analysis alone. This voice of illumination belonged not to a prophet of old, but to Albert Schweitzer. Now, he used the term reverence for life, and it's a lot more complicated than it sounds. First, a little background. Schweitzer was born in 1875 in Alsace, which at that time was part of Germany and now a part of France. He was the son of a Lutheran minister and a whole line of ministers preceding his dad. He was also a cousin of Jean-Paul Sartre, but that's fodder for another sermon, to be sure. It's coming. Schweitzer received his doctorate in philosophy in 1899, and in 1900 received a teaching degree in theology, which also enabled him to become a pastor of the St. Nicholas Church in Strasbourg. We'll bring that up again next Christmas time. So in 1905, so here he's been a minister for 5 years. 1905, he enters medical school after reading about the desperate need for physicians in Gabon, a French colony in Africa. So he was moved to dissolve the boundaries between himself and the poor in Africa. By 1913, he built a hospital in the French Congo. Now, he explained the move from the safe confines of St. Nicholas Church, the move to alleviate the pain and suffering in Africa. He explains it much in the same way that Buddha explained his departure from his comfortable palace. The need primarily was to expand empathy to others, which accounted for Schweitzer saying that morality needed to be extended. morality needed to be extended to the entire creation of the universe. He said, and I quote, "To come near to grasping a reverence for life, it was essential that relationships among us all be deepened and these relationships be widened." In other words, moving beyond the laboratory white rat, limiting his empathy and help to just white rats. Schweitzer won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1953, using the monetary reward to add a leprosy wing to the hospital. In an interview with Norman Cousins, Schweitzer, looking back over his life, said, "As a young man, my main ambition was to be a good minister." Now, I may no longer be in a position to regard myself as a young man, but the question of being a good minister remains for a lifetime. And the work of religion is forever with me, as well as trying to find meaning and how to live my life morally. Live it by extending empathy to those unlike myself. We are all in a position to learn more and to expand our sympathies. Having been troubled of late by the negative reaction of a community to the in-between, a hospice for homeless citizens, I will make an effort this new year to drop by there and see if there's work to be done by me and possibly you. The homeless who are dying are not typically the demographic on our radar. We have little or no connection with them, either deliberately or not. Often we just look away, perhaps feeling shame. But this unity of all people, this somehow mysterious unity, if we believe in it, invites us into a place where we move from an idea to an experience. Now, we saw that in Siddhartha leaping the wall to experience life fully head on, and Schweitzer leaving a comfortable parish to experience life fully head on. Now, a visit to the in-between is, believe me, nothing comparable. But it still moves me from just an idea to an experience. It is only in the experience that we learn to expand our empathy and commit ourselves to a moral life. And that's why theology is an endless personal journey. We grow with new experiences, but we never arrive. We have flashes of insight, but wisdom always lies far away. Now, when you come right down to it, the world will always be tumultuous. We will always shout along with Isaiah, "Ah, sinful nation." But like Isaiah, hopefully, we will continue to believe that boundaries between our individual lives will begin to dissolve. Without that faith, our lives will be full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. So be it. Can we close our service, turning our hymn books, please, to number 300. Distinguish the chalice, so may we end with these words by Judy Chicago. And then all that has divided us will merge, and then compassion will be wedded to power, and then both women and men will be strong, and then no person will be subject to another's will. And then all will care for the sick and the weak and the old, and then all will nourish the young, and then all will live in harmony with each other and the earth. And then everywhere will be called Eden once again.